but they will give people the option to do so. So if I'm on one platform, I may decide that, I don't know, this is a gaming platform. I don't want people to know who I really am, and what kind of a driver I am. This isn't an indication of how I go drive daily. This is when I race in a
Sure.
virtual world where there are no consequences. But maybe on an employment networking site, I might want to guarantee that people are certain that it's really me, and so I want to connect that. Maybe if I'm writing about my industry and I want to write posts and again make sure that people know it's really me, I'll connect them.
I thought you would want everyone to know your Super Mario score. Rob. That would really good.
No, it's bad.
One final question from me, which I suppose the answer is, well, just make another account. If you had two bank accounts, say you had a business one, maybe a personal one, and then maybe one you shared with your other half, for example, how would you go about that? Would you just use the one as your identification, but then these two other ones lose that security of what this product has?
The bank account is not your identity. It's just offering a verification service. Your identity comes from a government or from other ways of establishing it, not from us. All we're doing is we're offering a confirmation service that this is really you. Um, how you want to be able to manage it when you split apart your the various accounts that you need to run in your life, that's up to you as the consumer. All we're doing is we're saying effectively, this is the government identity credentials, or maybe say it's the university degree or the pilot's license that's associated with this person who's making this application online.
So, Rod, before you go, how can we reach out to you if we have any further questions at all?
The best way is through LinkedIn, or if it's a financial institution, through the IAF, or the OpenID Foundation.
Well, Rod, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us on this webinar.
Thank you. Bye bye.
So you've heard from our first three speakers in this webinar so far. If you have any further questions yourself as well that you want to pop by us, put in that Q&A box. We'll make sure to get to those with that discussion at the end of this webinar. Or you can always email jennifer@groupfuturista.com. Right now, though, we're going to take a short break and we'll be reconvening around 4:10 p.m. GMT for the remaining speakers and our panel discussion.
So you have a new customer. Congrats. But are they who they say they are? Answering this question is critical to the success and safety of your business. That's why Socure created DocV, the most scalable, user-friendly, and accurate document verification service on the market. Combining the power and scale of machine learning, DocV captures quality images from your customer and verifies the authenticity of over 3,500 government-issued ID types within seconds. DocV is a fully automated, omni-channel solution with better than 99% accuracy in detecting fakes and can support any point in the customer journey across web, mobile, and more. With simple delivery through Socure's single API, DocV can be a standalone solution or part of Socure's powerful ID Plus platform. So next time you onboard a customer, ask yourself, do you really know who you're doing business with? With DocV, you will. Schedule your demo today.
Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome back to our webinar this afternoon, discussing all things reimagining digital identity during COVID-19 for financial institutions. We've had some amazing keynote speakers so far, but we'll continue our day with our next keynote speaker, discussing all things a scalable document verification solution. And joining us from Socure, Mr. Ivan Rubowitz, VP Business Development at Socure. Ivan, thank you for joining us.
Hey, David, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Thank you. We'll can't wait to hear what you have to say.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for the time. So a little bit of a hybrid presentation here. So I had the joy of having my fiber cut this morning into my building, which is always a joyous occasion. So I'm currently hotspotting from my phone. So I'm going to run through a quick, call it 5-minute PowerPoint. And then the demo that I was going to run for you, I actually have my colleague here, Dale DeGuro, who owns our doc verification product. He'll go ahead and spin up the actual demo. We thought add a little kind of, fun to the conversation. So let me just go ahead and share my screen and I'll go ahead and kick this off and then I will turn it over to Dale, but thanks for the opportunity, David.
No problem at all. Sorry to hear about having to stream off the phone.
Oh, it's fun, right? Brand new building, and I guess construction cut the long line. So I'm more intrigued how fast they'll get it back up versus when it went down. So we'll see how today goes by. But thankfully we got hotspots on our phones. So yeah, quick introduction. Evan Rabinowitz, head up our partnerships and biz dev here at Socure. Humbled to follow Santander. They're actually a customer and investor of ours. So it's kind of great to see peers kind of in the same kind of ecosystem that we're working through. We thought we'd give you a quick 5-minute overview of kind of what we offer, the product, the platform, specifically doc verification today, and then go ahead and, as I said, kind of actually provide a real life demonstration of actually how the product works and the capabilities that our customers are currently deploying in the market today. But here at Socure, we really, we were founded in 2012. We're based on the notion that consumers for the last 20 years have started to live very digital lives. Each and every day we leave these digital breadcrumbs, which combined with traditional credit header data are really good at solving two problems. If and when your customer has a KYC or CIP requirement, how many good people can we legally allow them to say yes to with as little friction as possible? No KBA, no auto wallet, no manual review, just maybe a step up to DocV, which is what we'll talk through today. And then also at the same time, solving the more important problem, which is a third-party fraud identity classification issue of, is this really Dale trying to sit behind the device and open an account, or someone pretending to be Dale using synthetic, stolen, deceased, or just kind of overall fraudulent identity. Back before obviously the world changed, if any of you have the fortunate opportunity to come to our office, you will see this in every conference room, on every wall. This is our mission since we started the company. We want to be the first company to verify 100% of good identities in real time, while also completely eliminating identity fraud from every applicant on the internet. And that's really kind of our core focus in a day-to-day. In terms of kind of what we built, company's 8 years old. We spent the first 4 years doing nothing but testing data. So we've actually tested over 500 different data sources just in the US alone that exclusively focused on identity verification. The theme being that before we actually bring a product to market, can we go understand all of the data that exists from a public, private, authoritative, and just overall kind of solution set? From each data source, effectively understand what is signal and what is noise, and then build machine learning models to solve that one target variable, and that target variable being identity fraud. In kind of the short 4.5 years, we first signed our first commercial customer, I want to say in late 2016. We're humbled. We're approaching 500 customers here in the US, including 4 of the top 5 banks, 9 of the top 10 issuers, all the money service providers, fintechs where we made our name. We power basically every major fintech in this country, and we're humbled to be growing really, really fast. Data science is really kind of what we're here to do. 20% of our company is data science, about 19% engineering, about, I want to say, a third of the company commits code on a daily basis. So we're very much here to kind of build a best in breed product to solve for this notion of identity fraud. And along the journey, we've been fortunate to raise a bunch of money from some incredible institutions such as Wells, Citi, Synchrony, Commerce, Santander, Scale, and quite a other kind of few strategic investors. But the overall platform we deliver, this is generally why customers are buying Socure, right? We've built this passive capability between PII and doc verification to deliver kind of north of a 90% auto approval rate when customers are trying to open an account. That means, you, David, go to chase.com, chime.com, creditkarma.com, and in under 1 second should programmatically see 9 out of 10 of your customers just passed from an identity standpoint. But it's obviously not just about saying yes to everyone if you let all the bad people through the door as well. So we built effectively what we think is this seesaw effect, where not only can we deliver what we believe to be a best-in-class kind of acceptance rate or auto approval customer experience, we're also really, really, really accurate at entity resolution and classifying identities as good and bad, where without changes to credit risk or underwriting, we are going into the largest issuers and lenders in this country and reducing their identity-related dollar fraud losses by north of 85%. So really fundamentally changing the way our customers can operate their business by building a best-in-class customer experience, lowering their customer acquisition cost, and really putting up a wall so high that it's impossible for fraudsters to get through the door. This is just, for the folks that haven't heard of Socure before, a quick slide just showing our product suite. We're very much going to focus on doc verification today, and that will be the demo that Dale will run shortly. But the theme of Socure and why we've been so successful is that instead of having to solve for digital identity through a multifaceted approach of 10 different companies providing 10 different tools with 10 different solutions, we basically built a platform. The product is an API. It's 4 lines of code. It's a post request and JSON response in under 1 second. And from this single endpoint, you can solve for all versions of identity verification: KYC, fraud, AML, device, doc verification, individual risk scores across email, phone, and address. And we've wrapped a predictive analytics platform around our API. So the output of Socure is a decision on the identity, not data, effectively helping our customers move away from previously being in the business of identity, just really quickly knowing, yes, this is David, great. Now let me go focus what I do best, which is offering bank products, offering car loans, whatever their solution may be, not having to spend time and human capital and just overall resources to just even figure out, is this really a real Evan sitting behind a device 4,000 miles away from me? But getting onto doc verification, that's obviously why we're here today. Socure's really approach is the notion that if we can programmatically approve, call it 9 out of 10 good people from passive identity standpoint, for the remaining, call it 10 to 12%, half those are probably good people that made a mistake, maybe miskeyed, mistyped, accidentally switched their first name and last name or their date of birth. The other half are probably just bad actors intent on committing some sort of fraud. We at Socure believe a physical driver's license or passport check is a much stronger form of step-up authentication than KBA or out of wallet or even manual review, because it is just so expensive and consumers today just really demand instant gratification. So what you'll see Dale walk through shortly is our doc verification module, where through the same API endpoint, we also offer free SDKs for iOS, Android, and the web. Customers can deploy this tool and within call it 12 to 15 seconds, get a fully automated decision on the actual authenticity of the document. Is it a real government issued ID, or did someone go to Bleecker Street or Times Square and pick up a fake ID? Does the information on the front of the document and the barcode match the inputted PII, making sure there's correlation between the application information and what's on the document. And then most importantly, doing a liveliness check, right? Having the customer take a selfie so we can biographically match the image on the document to that person, because candidly, without a selfie match, someone could pickpocket someone, Google most of their information, and then, great, it's a real ID, but if you can't bind it to the person not sitting across from you, why did you just spend the cost for that tool if it didn't really solve for something? So the tool you'll see Dale walk through shortly, we support about 3,500 different unique documents from about 180 countries across the world. Again, it's full machine learning. We don't have humans. It's a fully automated process. 8 to 12 seconds round trip, sometimes 15 seconds, depending on the bandwidth of the customer. But it's not a situation where you're sitting there waiting minutes or hours and hoping for a decision to come through. Our most common use case is what we call step up, where if you don't pass KYC or fraud, it's a great way to help pass an identity. We have tons of institutions that deploy it at the top of the funnel because they just want to collect a government issued ID for every customer that they can't see sitting in front of them. So the great part about our solution is it's one API, 10 modules. You can call this wherever you'd like in your onboarding workflow, so that however you'd like to design your customer journey, whatever your risk or regulatory requirements are from compliance, you can design that yourself, and we're just the tool to help solve for that. In terms of DocV, right, we've noticed effectively there's really this two-pronged approach. You know, the most common mistake is people have their finger over the camera, or they accidentally click it too soon, or they end up taking a picture of their cat or dog, not realizing it, right? So human behavior sometimes isn't necessarily intuitive to capturing a perfect image. So what you'll see Dale walk through is we built tons of computer vision and machine learning into our SDKs so that the computer actually captures the image itself, not the consumer. So 100% of the time you have a perfectly machine readable image. So there's not the notion of repeating the check and then getting the consumer frustrated. And then to what your colleague earlier was talking about, just dropping off and abandoning and going somewhere else. Generally speaking, we've seen that with Socure's kind of image capture tools, our average customer is seeing about a 96% auto decision rate. So very, very few customers are actually not perfectly capturing an image. And Dale will show you a demo of exactly how we're reaching those statistics. But again, you know, as the theme of this today has been, you want to build a best-in-class fraud capture and fraud prediction capability while not putting a ton of friction on the customer, because that defeats the purpose of digital origination. So that's kind of this hybrid mentality approach, where if you can combine a passive PII check of KYC fraud AML device with a step up or secondary identity verification check of a government issued ID, you have, you know, the equivalent of effectively a Fort Knox identity verification tool to stop fraudsters from coming to the door. Dale, I'll pause my screen in a second and turn it over to you, but what you're going to see in real time is Dale effectively run through both our web version of document verification, and then if your customer has an app on iOS or Android, it's the same capabilities and tools, but you'll see that the device is doing hundreds of checks in real time. And Dale will talk through all of this and actually run through the demo because I want to be conscious of time. So Dale, I'll turn my screen over to you, let you run through a great demo, and then we can see what questions the team and the company may have.
Sounds good. Thank you, Evan.
Thanks, Dale.
All right, let me just go ahead and share my screen here. And let me know if you can see my screen, Evan.
Yep, we can see your screen.
Yeah, we can see it. Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of go through a little bit more of a technical demonstration, and we'll do this live. I think to what Evan was describing earlier is, you know, we have a lot of computer vision built into our image capture systems. And this is why Socure can rely 100% on machine learning rather than trying to take a hybrid approach where we have a human on the other side of the API looking at these documents. And part of that is the computer vision that's built into the image capture itself. So just for fun, I'm going to actually turn on our debug mode so you can sort of see what the computer vision system is doing behind the scenes. This isn't something that a normal end user would see, but I thought it'd be useful for everyone in the audience to appreciate this. So if I point this camera viewfinder at various things in my field of view, you can see that it's beginning to scan the environment for what it thinks is an ID. So if I point it at my microphone, it's actually not picking that up as an ID. When it sees something that resembles an ID, it'll bound it with a blue box. So you see there, if it sees a face, it'll bound it with a yellow box. If it sees other data points, it'll bound it with red and black boxes. So we'll skip this over. So that's how we're knowing and understanding what we're seeing in the field of view. So I'll go on and turn off debug mode and show what an end user would actually normally see there. So let's flip that off and let's go back to regular capture mode.
And the theme of the capability that we've built here is that, you know, consumers are so busy. They've got so many things going on when they're applying for a new account. You know, they could have kids around, they could be in the middle of work, they could be running errands. You know, let's put the reliance on the perfectly machine readable image on the actual computer itself, not on the end user, hopefully clicking the button the right time. So what you'll see in our application here, and it's standard across both web and native applications, is that the computer will actually capture it itself without relying on the consumer to kind of click it perfectly at the right time.
That's right. So exactly to Evan's point, as soon as it sees a shape that resembles what appears to be an ID based off of that computer vision component, it'll snap it automatically. It can even crop it to the edges and flatten it out if I took a photograph of that ID at an off angle. It'll even understand the difference between the front and the back. So if I had mistakenly pointed it at the back when we wanted the front or vice versa, it would actually know this information and float that feedback to the end user on device. And this is all intended to reduce the amount of round trips that Evan was referring to. So the best use case is to get it right on the first try. Here we can see that we can extract the information off of that barcode off of the back and present it. This is an option. A lot of times our customers will use this for a pre-fill scenario, perhaps save the customer from some keystrokes as they're executing their account opening. And then lastly, as Evan was referring to, I can easily steal this identity card from someone. What we prefer is to actually capture a self-portrait of them and biometrically match them back to the headshot on the ID itself. All right, so we've taken a headshot, and now we're going to submit those 3 assets, the front, the back, and that self-portrait. What you saw there also is that we're not adding additional friction by asking the end user to upload a high bandwidth video stream of themselves. Oftentimes you'll see other solutions. Maybe they ask the end user to look straight, look left, read a couple of words off of a screen. We can perform a high degree of liveness detection across the spectrum with a single frame of that individual. And I heard you mention, David, earlier, protection against deepfakes. So this sort of has a built-in component to protect against deepfakes in the sense that we can perform texture analysis, understand if someone's taking a photograph of a photograph or a photograph of a screen. Deepfakes are often video streams of individuals. So it sort of has a built-in protection against those spoofing attempts. And just for fun, like an end user, again, won't see some of these components, but for the demonstration, I'd like to show some of what's happening behind the scenes. We can analyze the risk of this device. Have we seen this device before? Is this device actually correlated with Dale, or is it correlated with someone else? What percentage of the time is it actually correlated with Dale? And then we can look at the document itself. So this is your liveness detection. So this will understand if we're seeing a video of somebody or a photo of somebody, or was this photograph actually taken live? We can extract the input information, correlate it back to that input. We can check age requirements. So if you're using this for age verification purposes, you can set those configurations up in the Socure dashboard. We can check for document expiration. This is especially relevant in the COVID-19 era, where a lot of good people are walking around with slightly expired IDs. So a lot of times our customers will set up a convenience radius for document expiration, depending on their risk for tolerance. We'll also verify the validity of these barcodes, check the headshot integrity. Has Dale spliced a photograph of himself over David's ID, for example? Here's your biometric check. So if you're watching closely, that wasn't me on the ID, so I failed this biometric check. Oftentimes I like to do this demo with a hat or a beard, and irrespective of some of those accessories, we can still biometrically match someone back to the headshot that they took on their ID from 5 years ago. So it's very accurate in that sense. And so that's a demonstration of our native SDK that can be plugged in directly as the camera viewfinder for your native applications that will live on the Apple App Store or on the Google Play Store, for example. But I also want to go into a quick demonstration of our web SDK. And as Evan was suggesting earlier, Socure is a lot more comprehensive than just a standalone document verification solution. So oftentimes you want to look at the information that was extracted off of this ID from a passive verification perspective. Can we take that information, run them up against a number of authoritative data sources, and passively verify them without an ID, or use that information to augment the check against that form of identification? The worst fraudulent ID you can find is one that's been subject to a supply chain attack, where someone has actually obtained a printer that actually issues legitimate IDs, and that would be the worst case scenario. So here we'll show an example of maybe a form that collects name, address, phone, email, date of birth, and SSN, and we'll run this through a passive check through Socure's ID Plus platform. And here we're going to see that we're going to request a government issued ID, but I'll pull up the hood and see what Socure thought about that identity that was passed in there. And at a high level, we're actually going to say, let's potentially reject it. We'll look at them from a KYC perspective or a know your customer perspective, and look at these individual items of fields that were passed in. So name, address, phone, date of birth, SSN, do these elements correlate with that name? If not, we'll return a 0.01 indicating a mismatch. Then we'll also provide reason codes that help you understand why there was a potential mismatch. So SSN was issued prior to date of birth, multiple SSNs with this person, address cannot be resolved to an individual, date of birth checks for age verification. Can we correlate this address to a zip code that is actually valid? So a lot of risk indicators there. So that tells you if this identity as supplied actually exists. Then we have our fraud score. Our fraud score will tell you the probability of this being an identity theft. So did Dale steal David's identity and try to pass it as his own? This is a value. The grading scale goes from 0 to 1. The higher the score, the higher it is, closer to 1, the higher propensity of fraud. So there's a lot of risk signals there. Phone risk. Has this phone been ported recently? Has it been subject to a SIM swap? Is it a major carrier? Is it a burner? Can we resolve this phone number to that person? Can the address be resolved to this person? Can this email be resolved to this person? How old is this email? What's the age of the domain? So a lot of risk signals that help us understand if this is in fact identity theft. And because a lot of times your onboarding process is not just one page that collects all the information in one shot. Sometimes you'll collect information piecemeal. Maybe we'll collect their address, maybe we'll collect their email, maybe we'll collect their phone initially, and you can run individual risk scores against these different data elements that were collected at any given time. In addition, we have a synthetic score that can tell you, was this identity made up? Is this your quote unquote Frankenstein ID? Maybe I took David's name and I took Evan's address and I took Dale's phone number and tried to assemble it into a fictitious identity. This is where our synthetic score plays. Alert list, this is our consortium database. Global watch list is our ability to check against OFAC, EU, SDN, PEP, adverse media sources, and provide within 15 minutes of an add, change, delete event, a push notification to your system. So you understand if there are any changes that have occurred to any of your folks that have been enrolled into your platform. Then lastly, we have our device fingerprint. So that's how we can check just off of the PII that was supplied passively against this information. And we can step this up to a documentary verification if we're not satisfied with the result that comes back from a passive verification. So what I'm going to show you is a step up to our web SDK version of that documentary verification. It's very similar to what you saw on the native SDK. This is an interface that can be fully hosted by Socure. It can be white labeled for your brand, so you can change logos, you can change text, you can change the domain to match your domain. And I'll just kind of walk through the same thing that I did with the native SDK. This is all browser based. So we'll permission the camera and we'll go through a driver's license check. And just to illustrate, again, a lot of the computer vision components are built into even the web version. So you see there that, I've even taken the photograph of that ID upside down. It can write the orientation on device without having to do that server side. We'll capture a photograph of the back of the ID. And then we'll capture a self-portrait of this individual as well. All right, so again, very similar to what we saw on the native SDK demonstration. We're going to take those three assets, the front, the back, and the self-portrait. They'll run through authenticity verification, where we check for security markers, typeface analysis, image splicing, biographic data manipulation, front to back matching. Did this document correlate with the input data? Did the self-portrait that I took correlate to the headshot on the ID? Was the self-portrait that I took a live photograph and not a video stream of a deep fake, perhaps? And here we can see the analysis of that document, just like we did earlier. We'll check for that liveness detection. We'll check the integrity of this document. So if you're watching closely, this was a really good replica of a Texas driver's license. We've extracted, we see that the address off of the ID doesn't match with the input data that I typed into the initial form. A number of other integrity checks passed. Here we see I've failed the biometric check. So I know that I stole this ID from somebody potentially. Here we've classified it as a replica of a Texas driver's license. We came back with a decision. We have the document data that we pulled off of this ID. Then we can supply all the assets that were captured and then combine this with a device fingerprint assessment and understand if this device actually also belongs to this identity.
Thanks, Dale. And yeah, thanks, David. I know we're coming up on time, but the theme here is, irregardless of acquisition channel, whether it's on the web, sitting at a laptop or a desktop, or on your mobile phone, or in, a native application of a consumer, same exact kind of level of security and authentication, same customer experience, no friction, whether you're 18 years old or my great grandmother who's 94, you can go through this process and not be intimidated and just quickly kind of meet the compliance and risk requirements of any bank or institution you're trying to, open an account or engage with.